agriculture is absolutely critical in tackling climate change. On one hand, agriculture is responsible for about a third of greenhouse gas emissions. The whole food system actually is responsible for about a third of greenhouse gas emissions, therefore contribute to climate change. But agriculture is also key to the solutions needed to tackle climate change. And if we look at another area in terms of natural resources and particularly water consumption, agriculture accounts for almost 70% of freshwater withdrawals, and producing more with less water can be then an important part of the solution to address water scarcity and drought, particularly in some parts of the world where water is not available everywhere. If we look at fisheries as well and aquaculture, there is also a significant opportunity there to reduce emissions, particularly through a reduction of fuels, for instance, in the industry. So agriculture has a key part to play in addressing climate change. And for this, the food systems have to be transformed really to provide this solution. They need to be more efficient, more adaptable, and more resilient in terms of the whole production and the whole stages of production, transport, consumption, etc. And this transformation needs to happen in ways that are also interconnected. So we need to change the way that we produce food, we process it and distribute it. We also need to change the way we as consumers consume food so that our dietary habits are also efficient and sustainable. For example, we have to stop wasting food and throwing food away. And the other aspect is also to look at the issue of inequality, to make sure that there is equal access to healthy diet by everyone. And this is particularly important because on one hand, we have almost 700 million people who go hungry every day. And on the other hand, we have about 2 billion people who are either obese or overweight.
What do you see is the role of agribusiness in mitigating climate change?
Businesses, obviously, the issue of efficiency becomes absolutely important. It has to be embedded throughout the production chain. And agribusinesses in particular, they're endorsing various innovative approaches linked to efficiency, but also to the sustainable use of natural resources and the resilience that I mentioned earlier. So there are various practices to do, as you said, either to do with energy efficiency in the production process, and also efficiency in the use of natural resources such as water. And if you look wider, for instance, for retailers, for instance, and supermarkets, where they're also embedding innovative approaches, sustainable approaches to reduce the amount of plastic, for instance, being used to transport, store, or distribute food. And they're taking also innovative actions to reduce food loss and waste. And this is absolutely critical because food loss and waste is responsible for about 7 to 8% of greenhouse gas emissions. And as we say, if food loss and waste were a country, it would be the third emitter of greenhouse gas emissions. And obviously, when we throw food away, we don't just generate emissions, but we also waste all the energy and natural resources, the effort, the water, everything that went into producing that food. So there is this evolution or this dynamic now, but agribusinesses also, taking part in employing and promoting solutions that are needed for addressing climate change. And agribusinesses, we can also look at the agenda much wider in terms of not just in the production chain, but these actions are needed by all actors. So the agribusiness as a part of that, but obviously to tackle climate change and to address the solutions needed from the agri-food systems, then everyone will need to play a part in this, including the consumers.
What can smallholder farmers do to mitigate climate change?
Well, there are things that smallholder farmers can do, but they also need support to do things. Around the world, there are about 500 million smallholder farmers, and they are highly dependent on natural resources and agriculture, obviously, and they're particularly vulnerable to climate change. But they do, in general, lack appropriate technological and economic support and knowledge, as well as the social support really to tackle the challenges and the causes of climate change. So they need that support to take actions. As I said earlier, actions throughout the food systems is really needed by different actors. So smallholder farmers, in a sense, they're already doing things that preserve the soil and promotes climate smart practices, but they need more information, including digital information, that can help them actually to access information to do about the impact of climate change, how to prepare better, how to diversify production, how to adapt certain practices to the changing environment and changing climate. And here for smallholder farmers in particular, I think that the support needed is also to make sure that we focus on women and youth as well, because they are the most vulnerable, particularly in rural areas. And here becomes the issue of equality in inclusiveness as being really important in helping farmers to tackle the impact of climate change. And the other point I would say is to do with the resilience, supporting farmers, smallholder farmers in particular, to be resilient to the impact of climate change. And COVID-19 has actually reinforced the focus on resilience. So we need to make sure that there is a focus on resilience and inclusiveness, so that we have the most vulnerable communities and the poorest, like smallholder farmers, are actually supported in becoming more resilient. And one other aspect for this is land tenure. As you know, there are many smallholder farmers who don't own their land. So obviously, we need to ensure that tenure to the land they farm and is appropriate, and also access to water and other natural resources. So to sum up, for me, smallholder farmers, they are already doing things through the traditional way of farming, but they also need support and information to make sure that they are prepared. They are taking on board the latest information, the latest techniques when it's appropriate as well, including innovative techniques. And one aspect I would add as well is that by supporting smallholder farmers, not just to have information, but to have access to markets as well, and also support in storing their food. I mean, the storage facilities in developing countries in general by smallholder farmers is really weak. I mean, we estimate that between 20 to 40% of food production in sub-Saharan Africa, for instance, is lost because of food processing, poor food processing and storage. So food storage is another issue that smallholder farmers would need support with to help increase their income and their livelihood.
Indeed. Can you tell us a little bit of some of the programs that are currently underway in Africa Because I know there is a push now, thanks to COVID. One of the positive aspects I could say is that we all realized how important it is to be integrated into the digital economy, right? The global digital economy now has to become a reality. And we have
Yeah.
seen examples, right? With M-Pesa, for instance, the mobile
Mhm.
transaction payments that has helped
In
greatly
Kenya.
women in Kenya to
Mhm.
bring their goods to the market and to make transactions. Actually, that was started between, it was some sort of grassroots movement, right? They were trading their credits on the phone, and then the telecoms then later realized there was a market opportunity. So are there any other similar experiences that FAO is participating or looking into right now?
Yeah, the M-Pesa model you mentioned, excuse me, is one of the earliest and simplest one, and the one that works, and it's been applied to many other sectors. And actually, there is a huge opportunity there to make it actually accessible by all smallholder farmers. Why not? Because all you need is just a mobile phone, excuse me, and connected to the network, obviously. But the other activity that we're engaged in now, and we are working to promote the linkages between food security and energy security. So for farmers to benefit from access to renewable energy, where it can help them again have access to water, in various areas where you can actually use solar panels to pump water and then use it in an efficient way to irrigate. So here we're talking about efficient irrigation, but that can have multiple benefits as well, particularly in rural areas. I mean, renewable energy can allow you not just to make rural, agricultural practices easier, it can also allow you to have light. Obviously, just one light bulb in a room that can help, have light for the place, but also help kids, learn, before they go to school. And also, you may be able to operate a small refrigeration that can allow you to store food and store medicine. So we're looking at the broader benefits of renewable energy for agriculture, but also for livelihoods in rural areas in general. So this is an area that we really want to promote in linking food security and energy security going forward.